This is Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I am Dan Manarino. So let's get into it. In 2 weeks of the second Trump administration, the White House staying true to tough immigration policies with multiple ICE raids happening across the country. In fact, we've seen several right here in our own area. Dozens arrested in New York and New Jersey, thousands more nationwide. But this is an operation involving more than just ICE. Mayor Eric Adams saying the city coordinated with the Department of Homeland Security in this very operation. And the Drug Enforcement Administration here in New York also partnering in this effort. So today, Special Agent in charge of the New York Division of the DEA, Frank Tarantino, going on the record. And Mr. Tarantino, back on Picks on Politics. Great to have you back.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
So I want to begin with the raids, right? And the directives, I guess, that you were given first and foremost. We saw you with images of the Secretary of Homeland Security front and center here. Yeah. So take us behind the scenes, peel back the curtain on what exactly the directive was.
Well, number one, this is a top priority for the Drug Enforcement Administration and all of our partners in the federal law enforcement community, specifically our partners at DHS. And that priority is to keep our communities and our citizens safe. And to do that, we have to remove the most violent illegal criminals from our city streets. And having the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, with us was inspiring, motivational, and also uplifting in terms of having a top-tier leadership member of the administration standing alongside of us, out on the street with us, and giving us that clarity of message and that unity of purpose to go out and carry out our mission.
So let's talk about it, right? Because I think when people hear the words raids and immigration, they automatically think ICE, right? And I've heard from a number of folks who are watching this show who came to me and said, why was DEA involved in removal of some of the immigration policies here? So how does DEA play a part?
I think there's a couple of really important things to consider when you look at that question. Number one is we're partners, and we work collaboratively in many of our investigations with the Department of Homeland Security, specifically HSI. And over the years, we have built some of the most significant investigations and prosecutions with our partners. And so we will always partner with our law enforcement community to make sure that we're carrying out the mission to keep communities and people safe. And the second thing is that many times violent criminal illegal drug traffickers are involved in these investigations and are part of these identified persons that have come up on lists that the Department of Homeland Security has produced. And so in working in collaboration with our partners, it's really essential that we work in a whole of government approach to be more effective and more efficient in this work.
But not every single target that DEA was part of in these raids, right, was necessarily tied to a drug issue.
The Department of Homeland Security, along with the full support of the Department of Justice, has granted us Title VIII authority, which allows us to go out and execute the immigration enforcement priorities of this administration. And doing that, we will do it with our partners from ICE and ERO and DHS.
Okay. So I guess one of the questions I've heard again on one of the many issues here, and I think you've heard this as well, is why now, right? What changed when some of these individuals who may have been there for months even, right, may have been on the radar? Why specifically now was the time to move in? What changed?
There's a wholesale change in the support and in the clarity of purpose and the unity of effort and in Washington, D.C., and then throughout the federal law enforcement community to go out and remove those most violent illegal criminals from our city streets. And this is a renewed commitment and effort to do exactly that, and that's what the Drug Enforcement Administration, specifically here in New York, the New York Division, are committed to.
So when you are going into these raids, right, and we've heard from the Trump administration about going after the worst of the worst, is that exactly what we're seeing play out? Is everybody that was targeted this week and taken into custody, were they the worst of the worst? Because there have been some reports out there, and I don't know if you can clear up the confusion, that some of them were just some folks who may have entered illegally but didn't have a criminal background besides that.
We are 100% targeting the worst of the worst, as you put it, the most violent criminal illegal aliens and drug traffickers that are in and amongst our communities and that are causing the most harm. In doing this work, there's often times when agents and investigators will make an arrest in an apartment or in a structure where maybe there's other people in that apartment and/or structure that do have immigration issues. And in those instances, we will do our job and make sure that we carry out the responsibilities that we are given under Title VIII to hold them accountable. And in doing that, we will work with our ICE and ERO counterparts to process them and put them through this administrative removal process.
Yeah. And I've seen some of the videos, some of the pictures. It's a dangerous situation that you're putting your agents in the middle of, right? What happens after someone's taken into custody? Where do they go? How long are they detained, or are they immediately deported?
So we are, as mentioned, coordinating directly with ICE and ERO, and there is a process in which they ingest these individuals into a holding center and then process them for removal at some point in the future. Again, there's two types of things happening here. There's the criminal side, and then there's the administrative side. Mm-hmm. Many of the people that we arrested early on were violent, illegal criminals that were part of investigations ongoing, and then also that were wanted for very serious crimes.
How is the relationship or partnership with the NYPD play out in all of this, right? Because then Sanctuary City comes into play. So how does that help or hinder the operation?
So as you know, the NYPD is an integral partner in the work that we do day in and day out in the Drug Enforcement Administration, specifically in the New York Division. We have one of the oldest and most productive, most successful task forces in the country, the New York Drug Enforcement Task Force, made up of NYPD, DEA, and the New York State Police. And that partnership and that cooperation is what has allowed us to do the really important work in this city, in the 5 boroughs. We will continue to coordinate with our partners at the NYPD to ensure that we are targeting the right organizations and the right individuals that are causing the most harm. And we're asking our NYPD partners to do exactly that, work the investigations, the criminal investigations, and the organizations that have impacted this city. We have not asked the NYPD to participate in any kind of administrative removal process. There's enough work to be done on the investigative side that the NYPD is committed to, and that is so successful in that we're going to continue down that path.
Last question here, because we're almost out of time, and that is, I guess, the length of time that this is expected to play out for. Because I've looked on your social media every day, there seems to be some kind of activity every morning. So is this in the long-term future that these are going to happen daily?
So Dan, the DEA has prioritized all of its drug investigations on those involving violent, illegal, criminal drug traffickers. And so this is an effort by the DEA and all of our partners to remove those individuals that are causing the most harm. And what you saw play out the other day, and will continue to play out as we go forward in the days, weeks, and months ahead, is something that we should all get used to until we can curb this this violence that's causing many people in our communities to feel unsafe.
Okay, well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about it. Come on back, and if I can, I'd like to come out on one of those as well. I know it's a tricky situation, but we'll work it out. Frank Tarantino, Special Agent in charge of the DEA. Great to have you back here, okay?
Thank you.
All right, everybody, a campaign shakeup involving 2 big New York City races. Assemblywoman Jennifer Rajkumar dropping out of the comptroller race to challenge Jumaane Williams for public advocate. So I'm sitting down with her next to hear her reasoning behind the big switch.